Hi everyone, welcome to the History of Veritas Villa. We wanted to share this with you as we move forward into the future, but we wanted to share the history and how did we get to where we are today. Cusack Candy Store, Astoria, Queens, circa 1957. The story of a man, Jim Cusack, with his mom and dad in the background in Queens. His gift, Shrine of Our Lady of Martyrs, Auriesville, New York. His dream, from there, Glenacre Lodge, 1965 to 1971. Beautiful Glenacre Lodge, 30-bed singer-sewing machine mansion, became Glenacre Lodge. The Hawk's Nest, the drive to Glenacre, the crooked road to get to the straight and narrow, Port Jervis, New York. Glenacre Lodge. From there to St. Joseph's, 1973 to 1981. St. Joseph's, 1,500 acres, old buildings, sanatorium, the camps, boys' camp, the chapel, the boys' camp, the girls' camp, all empty, not used anymore in this era. 4 nuns sent back up again to kickstart something. Beautiful lake, Lake Dominic. St. Rose, where the nuns used to live. St. Rose Cottage. The beautiful grotto, holding many, many prayers from people who had been there over the years. The road going into St. Joseph's. The chapels, where no longer anyone was there. Then the history of the villa in pictures from 1965 and on, with all the many, many people who became a part and made it happen. The original dedication ceremony of the villa, 1973, a mass that was said with a lot of prayers. The first brochure of the villa, very affordable, $1,200 for 10,000 copies. Statue of St. Joseph, got us through many a thing. The first villa, St. Mary's, the St. Mary building with a phone. The first coffee room, a 30-pot coffee pot from home. St. Catherine's, many of a policeman stayed there. Our first apartment, St. Rose. St. Charles Villa became the villa without siding. The renovations of the villa, making for classrooms into a dining room and into a coffee room. The first TV room with many donated TVs. St. Charles, the villa now with siding on the outside. The villa at night with windows where many a prayer was said. The first holiday staff, Jim and Sue with Ralph, our first cook. Rose Lewis and some of the nuns. Art and Pearl Mott, who were the first people that helped us kickstart the villa. Margaret McCormick took Sister Peggy to her first AA meeting, got the nuns interested in going to AA and to see what alcoholics could do with their lives. The Caseys that helped to keep the place going. The beautiful Lake St. Dominic. Our gym with Ed Cody, our piano player, became a resident. Tex Shoemate, a counselor, one of our first. The Icelandic folks visiting from Iceland, getting sober and going back. Many of our staff with Jim's mother and Casey and Carmen. Monsignor Dunn, singing I'll Be Home for Christmas to his troops. John McCormick, friend of the villa. One of our chefs at the old villa. And the friendly deer, they were beautiful, innocent and peaceful. Part of the serenity, the house of prayer. Jim and I sharing a first anniversary cake of the villa's anniversary. My sister was a counselor at the villa, and brother-in-law, Steve. First presentations, Jim Selleck, Transit Police, getting an award. The Icelandic celebration, June 17th, they had a cake for them. Sullivan County Community College. Our Jim and Dick Dunn. Jim was an adjunct professor at Sullivan County College. Willie Lynch, one of our first residents, chose to die at the villa. Doris Scott, a resident. Ralph, our chef. Jack, another chef. Arlene, friends of the villa, one of our friends that helped the villa get known. Sister Peggy, before she started counseling. The House of Prayer with a sing-along with everyone over there. Eleanor, one of our residents. Magnus Johansson from Iceland with a sing-along. Dr. Cusack and his wife dancing at one of the villa dinner dances. Monsignor Dunn being honored at one of the villa dinner dances. John Ward being honored at one of the villa dinner dances. Jerry McBride, since became a priest and passed on. Gene Peters. John Igo and his daughter, one of our residents. Some more of our residents at the villa. Another priest resident. Our kitchen staff, priest, and one of the visitors and residents of the villa. Another resident. We ended up with 34 residents chose to be at the villa. Ray and Doris, residents. Sister Teresa became a counselor at the villa. Eileen Flynn, a resident. John and Louise Ward. Scully on a New Year's Eve at the villa. Jim, Eucharistic minister, helping Sister Loretta. Carmen, counselor and dear friend. Jim's with a celebration at the villa. Midnight Mass, St. Joseph's. Another resident. The sisters, Peggy, Marianne, and Teresa. Another resident. A painting by a friend of the villa. Serenity of the Deer added a lot. Freddie Fixit. Joe Piero, a dear friend from Freeport Hospital, and his wife. A party at the Cusack residence. Father Joe. Sing along again. Mickey Diamond with Tom Nixon and Gene Peters. The Sullivans. Ann Tully. Icelandic friends visiting from Iceland. Francis Murphy, everyone knows Francis Murphy, a dear resident. Our Jim. The first truck donated by friends of the villa to the villa. Jim prior to a talk. Willie Francis and Ed Cody. Jack McGonigal, one of Jim's first assistants at the villa. Jim's mom, Peg Cusack. Sue's brother, Jimmy Boylston. Sue's dad, Al Boylston. Jim's dad, Jim Cusack Sr. Aunt Vera, who was talked about in Jim's book. My mother and I. Tom Nixon and our dog Totem. Sister Loretta, Ed Cody, and Sister Teresa. A pet from the villa, our cat Pesty, Sister Peggy. Ed Cody, with little Melissa. Jim sitting on Santa's James McGee's knee. Dan McCarthy, our photographer, for many of these beautiful photos. My mom playing the piano, and Cody singing along. Monsignor Fry, first Monsignor up at St. Joe's. Jack McGonigal and George Martin. Our own Rose Lewis. Sister Thomas and Ray. John Igo and Doris. A little family of ducks down the road. The grotto. Many a prayers left there. The kitchen at the villa. Another delicious Thanksgiving dinner, one of our first Thanksgivings. A visitor, John Dodd. Jim with his mom and Frances. Jim walking 5 miles, our dog Totem. May Norton, resident. George Glinsky, our first guest. Margaret Sheehy. A retreat at the villa. 7th anniversary of the villa. Jake walking his dog, his imaginary dog. The house of prayer. Many a prayer was said for all at the villa. Waterfall happens to be a 12-step waterfall. The grotto in the snow time. And the grotto in the spring. Dr. Doyle, founder of Con Ed program with Jim, down there. The lake, St. Dominic. An anniversary with Sue's family. The beautiful barn. Veritas Villa Detox, drawn by one of our clients. Freeport Hospital, one of the first on Long Island. One of the Icelandic visitors. Our home in St. Joseph's. Again, Icelandic anniversary day. Dick Malloy and Jim celebrating an anniversary. First attorney Larry Lagrene. Bill Donovan and his wife Kathy, sanitation department. Mickey Diamond, a dear friend to all. Charlie McCauley and Arlene, friends of the villa. Echo Hotel, in between when we had to leave. Veritas Villa 1981 to the present. The new villa, all the residents see their new home. That year, all our 32 residents were honored at our dinner dance for the work and the love that they gave to the villa. Moving Day, 1981,. A chapel and a room dedicated to our higher power. Dan McCarthy up in the helicopter taking photos of our new home in Kerhonkson. P.S. Dan was terrified of heights, but went up there to get these pictures. The staff, 1982. Father McKenna with a Mass of Gratitude, and Jim assisting in the communion. Friends of Villa Cruz, October 16th, 1982. Friends of the Villa, Fun and Sobriety. Had everyone go on a cruise down to Bermuda. Many of the friends of the Villa having a good time. Then back to Kerhonkson. Christmas time, Dr. Doty at the time. The Sunshine Room with Francis and Doris. Mike and Maureen Farrow just celebrated 25 years of marriage. Artie King and a friend in the gym. Artie and Judy King on their wedding day in Kerhonkson. Denise and Bill Cusack. Artie, Judy, and little Andrea Cooney. Pat Cooney and Father Mildy. George Koch and Jim. Lenny. Joe McCauley and Sue Heath. Artie Knoweth. Pat O'Keefe with Gary, the counselor. The family of Barney Roach, celebrating his life. Rodney, Roger, Luana, and Michelle. And Mr. and Mrs. Kloss. The Villa Outpatient Center, about the 80s. Carmen and Casey and Tracy. Pat Cooney with a few residents there. Kathleen and Father Frank. Some of the staff in the early 90s. Les getting acupuncture. The women's unit at Veritas Villa Kerhonkson. Harold lecturing in the fishbowl. New Year's Eve 1982. Preparing for our second wedding, the Selleck wedding. Visitors at Christmas time, Harry and Terry Winan and family. The Orange Wing, which was truly orange. The lobby at Christmas time. The Selleck wedding, 1982. Dick Dunn presiding as minister. Father McKenna, a Mass of Thanksgiving. The Sunshine Room. The Villa celebrating 25 years. Logo Promotions, Jim's idea for a business to help people in recovery to find their way. Mike and John, part of the team. Veritasville honorees, Edward Ostrowski was one of the first. Jerry McBride, Father Frank McKenna, Terry McGuire, Tom Van Wagner, Don Perks, Stacia Murphy, Adele Smithers, Bill Troy, Tom Burns, Karen Carpenter, Claudia Ragney, Ken Peters Center, Roger Ross. Other honorees, John Brian Murtaugh, Vincent Dowling, John Ward, Lieutenant Jackie McCarthy, Patty Kelly Barker, Sandy Backham, Liz Bailey, Ted Mapes, Dr. Paul D'Amico, John McCormick, Michael Picucci, Paul Samuels, Rick Ostrom, and Bill Troy. Celebrating the sobriety of our Jim's 50th sober year, October 26, 2002, at the Neville Grand East, formerly the Falls View, from 2 to 8 p.m., with various photos of friends and family. Over 500 people in attendance to celebrate Jim's 50th year, continued sobriety, and how many lives, and celebrating the gifts of the lives that he's touched. About 30 people wanted to thank him and share, and many, many more. The dinner waited as we continued. And the Neville Hotel had never seen so many sober people celebrating such a special day. Joe and Eileen Chilalis, the Cooney family. Dr. Christiana, our heart doctor, keeps Jim and I healthy. Dr. John and his art show. All of us in attending at the art show. Dr. John and Eddie at the art show in Ellenville. Midge Ellenville dinner dance. Liz Bailey and Jim spoke together in Jersey at Freedom House. This is Freedom House, Jersey. Pat and Fred Reel. Karen Carpenter giving Jim a very special award, the Governor's Award in Albany. All the staff surprised Jim with this beautiful, significant recognition from the Governor of New York. This is Denise, Father Jack, celebrating at another dinner dance. Andy, Darlene and her husband. Eddie getting his Cusack degree. Jim being presented an award by Ted Mapes and Burns and the folks at LAP luncheon. Harry Farrell, a dear friend of the villa. Stu Paul, we remember him very much today. Our Lynn. And Ruben. Rose and her grandson, Rose Lewis. Les, Daisy, and June. Lynn and Jane. Bob Hartman presenting a gift to Jim and to the villa from his golf tournament. Les, Jack, Shana, and Jane. Clem and Barbara, another luncheon. And our new blessings, Shana and Eric with the little baby Angelina. Sue and Ray at work and admissions. Debbie and June. Helen O'Keefe, Barbara, Lenny. Ellie singing at the Gratitude Mass Memorial Day. Bonnie and Mary. Father Jack and Ken. Rose Lewis's 92nd birthday. A resident 35 years with us. Eddie and his mom. Our niece Joan and our nephew Gerard. Jim with the police commissioner, New York City. Our new Angelina. Rich Buckman getting award Social Worker of the Year. Our friends Dick and Kathy Dunn. Matt Ryan, Thanksgiving. Rodney, Jack, and Ted Jr. Thanksgiving Day at the Villa and the wonderful staff that created it. Tom, Lucas, and Jim. Pat and her daughters, Jim and Sheila. Memorial Day, Pat and Helen O'Keefe. The new villa facing, we hope to follow through. Teddy Mapes and Mary. Pat and Maria. Jack and his brother. The dinner dance, Kevin and Donna, Sue and Jim. Father Emil Raymore. Sue with Patty and Justin, her niece and nephew. Vinny Panettiere and his wife. All our friends, Bill Troy, Don, Tommy, Teresa and Joe. Dr. Hermitas and Mrs. Hermitas. Don and Joan Perks. The Burns. Teresa, Denise and Jerry. Jane and her husband. And Lou and his wife. Roger and Steve. Reggie. Francis and Dewan. John and Louise Ward and Jerry and the grandchildren. Carol, Jean, and Jack. Joanne and her daughter. Kenny and Linda. Ralph and Jim. Claudia Ragney and her family. Daisy and her husband, Jim. Sister Sue and Father Jim at Halloween at the Villa. Sue Heath and her gang, Halloween at the Villa. Eric and Ashley, Mr. and Mrs. Kloss. Andrea and Alexa Cooney. The Reed family, John, Mia, and the little ones. Ed Rock, our musician. Rose and Brendan Conway. The gingerbread house that was built and wasn't able to get through the door to go back to the kitchen. Sue and Jim and Alan, our nephew. The Cooney family. Jim and Joe McCauley, a longtime friend of the Villa. The Reed family. Gene and his daughter and friend. Barbara Waite and Mike, her husband. Jim and Jerry Sloboda, volunteer. Barbara and Mike, Bobby and Mike. Nicole and Jerry, our nursing department. Our friends of ours. Jim with Johnny and John. And Sue Heath with Mary. Tommy and Jerry. The Katz family. Roger Ross and his family. Sue and Jim with Tex Shoemate and Jerry down in South Carolina. And Judy and Rose reunited. The future. We go to the building to come on the top of the mountain. And the impossible dream continues, one day at a time.